Hi, bookish friends. I am the type of reader that forms opinions on books over a long period of time. So throughout the year, I've been looking back at what I've rated certain books, and I'm finding that a lot of times I actually disagree with my rating. Most of the time, I rated them directly after I finished reading them. So today, I'm going to go through every single book that I read in 2024 and see if my rating still stands or if I want to change it. I have read 64 books so far this year. It is December 9th. So we have a little bit more time, but we're just going to do the books that I have read so far this year. We're going to go on to my manual book tracker on Airtable. This is just like my own little personal, almost like spreadsheet. Starting in January, the very first book that I finished was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. In my Airtable spreadsheet, I rated it a 4 stars. Thinking back on it, I do think I will keep it at 4 stars. I really, really liked this book. I liked the story, but there was a few things that brought my rating down. One thing that I didn't really enjoy was it felt a little bit insta-lovey to me, and it did feel a lot like we skipped over like the whole war that was going on in the book. The fantasy elements were fun, but I just wanted more of that. I wanted more background. I wanted more of a slow burn. But overall, I still think it was really cute and I really enjoyed it, and I will definitely be rereading it in the future. So yeah, I think a 4 stars is a perfect rating for this book. Then I finished What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu. This is a memoir, so I do not rate memoirs, but I will say that if you struggle with CPTSD, you should definitely pick this up. I just love reading about other people's trauma stories, as horrible as that sounds. I personally have a lot of trauma, as a lot of us do, so I just like to hear other people's stories and relate to it, I guess. So I did like this one, but I don't rate memoirs. Then I finished A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. This one was very intense, obviously. I rated this one a 3.5 stars. So my thought process when I rated it a 3.5 stars was that it was slow for me. It was a lot of just like going through the day to day. But I do see that the author was definitely just kind of like getting us attached to the characters before she ripped our hearts out. And even though I love the characters and I love the story and I feel connected to the story, it was difficult for me to get through in the sense that it felt very mundane and like a little bit dense, and those types of books are very hard for me to get through. So it wasn't really about the story or the writing. The writing was beautiful. It was more so about the feeling that I was having while I was reading it. Looking back on it now, I do think that I will reread it in the future. I think I'm actually going to bump this up to a 3.75 because yes, it was slow for me, but I do really love the characters. I kind of have a feeling that upon a reread, my rating will be even higher. Then I read The Mountain Is You by Brianna Wiest. If you couldn't already tell, at the beginning of the year, I was very into nonfiction, which changed very quickly. This is like a self-help motivational book, and I rated it a 3 stars, and I'm going to stick with that. And my reason for rating it a 3 stars was that it was good, but it wasn't anything different than all of the other self-help books that I've read or listened to. Once you read a lot of them, they really just all start to sound pretty much the same. So yeah, that's where it sits. It's a good book. If you haven't read any self-help books, then I think this would be a good place to start. There was nothing inherently wrong with it at all, but it was just the same as every other self-help book. There was nothing different or unique or special about it. It all said the same things that they all say. Then I read Tell the Wolves I'm Home by Carol Rifka Brent. This is like a coming of age story. I'm pretty sure our main character is 12 or 13. I rated this a 3 stars. And again, I do think that I stick with that rating. I definitely think that I was not the audience for this book, but I will say that I highlighted and annotated it because there was some really great quotes about growing up and about grief that I related to. I think this would be a perfect book for a preteen or a teenager that has lost someone in their life that is close with them. I can imagine that this book would have been very impactful for me if I had been younger when I read it, like say when my grandma died or something like that. Then I read Brain on Fire, My Month of Madness by Susanna Cahalan. This is also a memoir. It's about a woman who, honestly, I kind of forget what was wrong with her, but there was something wrong with her brain. And I picked this up firstly because my brother's friend gave it to me to read, and also because I thought that I would be able to relate to it a lot because my mom had a brain tumor. So I thought that I could relate to it, and I wasn't wrong. I definitely related to some of the things in this book, but again, it was a memoir, so I'm not gonna rate it, but it was definitely an interesting read. Okay, we're moving on to February. I read Spare by Prince Harry. I liked this. It was a little bit slow, but it was very interesting to get to know what was going on behind the scenes in the royal family. Again, it's a memoir, so I didn't rate it. I swear I didn't read as many memoirs later in the year, guys, so don't leave. The rest of the year after February is pretty much fiction. So I pretty much burnt myself out of memoirs in the first part of the year. Then I read Educated by Tara Westover. That's another memoir. This was amazing. If I did rate memoirs, this would be rated very highly, like a 5 stars probably. But again, there's no rating. And then I read last memoir, guys, When Breath Becomes Air. And again, a memoir, the last one. I'm not going to rate it, but I will say that this was not as captivating as the other memoirs that I've read this year. This was my least favorite memoir. It just didn't really hit as much as I thought it would. Okay, guys, then I read Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, and I rated this a 5 stars. I know that in some spaces that's controversial because I know a lot of people did not end up liking Iron Flame, but I actually liked Iron Flame more than I liked Fourth Wing. Usually when I read books in a series, the later books usually hit harder for me because I know the characters and I love the characters. And that's precisely what happened with this one. I really liked all of the action, all of the suspense. I loved the dragons so much. A lot of people's complaints are that Violet and Xaden's like fight throughout the book was really dragged out and ridiculous, but I honestly didn't even think that when I was reading it. I wasn't even thinking about that. I was just like excited about all of the stuff going on and the dragons. Yes, I do like the romance, but I will say that like Violet and Xaden, they aren't my favorite fantasy couple ever. I was mostly in this series for the dragons and for the fantasy, the war, the action, all of that. I really loved all of that. And it gave me that 5-star feeling, so I'm going to leave it at a 5 stars. Then I read The Hotel Nantucket by Ellen Hildebrand. I was reading this kind of as like a palate cleanser, but then I actually really liked it a lot, and I've actually picked up more Ellen Hildebrand to read now because I just love that book so much. So it definitely surprised me. I rated this a 4.25, and I think I'm actually going to stick with that rating. It had me smiling, it had me curious, there was like a little bit of suspense. I just loved all of the characters so much. Then I read Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. I rated this a 4 stars. I think that I am going to stick with a 4 stars for this one too. With thrillers, I'm looking for something that will thrill me, keep me on my toes, and that I won't guess the ending. I will say that probably 3/4 of the way through this book, I did guess the ending, but it didn't take away from the book. I really like books with moms, especially when they are portrayed realistically and they actually have realistic, actual struggles that moms have. And this book definitely had that. So that definitely brought the rating up. I will say that it was a little bit repetitive because it was one of those kind of like Groundhog Day books where she's repeating the same day over and over again until she can figure out how to get out of the loop. But I still found it interesting. I liked following along her story and trying to figure out with her how she was supposed to stop this time loop. Then I read 5 Survive by Holly Jackson and I rated it a 3.5. This one definitely had me on my toes. I was curious what was going to happen. Again, it was a little bit repetitive. It felt very YA to me. I'm realizing right now that I haven't changed many of my ratings yet, but I think I will later on in the year here. I think I went back and changed these beginning ones actually a few months ago. You know what? I think that I am actually going to bring this up to a 3.75 because of the fact that I didn't guess who was going to survive and what the plot twist was at the end. I think I guessed kind of like partially what the plot twist would be, but I didn't know like which of the people was going to be involved. Okay, we're moving on to March, where I read The Book Eaters by Sunyi Dean. If you watched my video last week, you know that this is in one of my underhyped books of the year. I rated this a 4.75. You would think that with all of the talk about this book that I have done, it would be a 5-star book, but I will say it is at times graphic, and there was one specific point that made me feel very icky, and it involved children and child abuse, and that makes me feel very icky. That is like the one trigger warning that I want to know about when I am picking up books, because I really, really do not like abandonment of children or child abuse. Obviously, nobody likes that. So I did bring it down 0.25 points because of that icky feeling in that one part of the book. But even like child abandonment, there was that throughout the book. So if I didn't have a problem reading about that, this would 100% be a 5 stars. I love this book so much. Then I read Divergent by Rebecca Yarros? No, Veronica Roth. I rated this a 3.5. I think I do still stick with that. I did like it a lot. I do remember it feeling very YA for me, which again is not a big problem, but I'm almost 32 years old and I just don't really connect with YA books like I used to when I was younger. So yeah, I don't think there was anything inherently wrong with this or anything. 3.5 is a good rating. It just felt average to me. It felt like I've seen this before. Then I read Dracula by Bram Stoker and I rated it a 4 stars. I really liked this book a lot. I listened to most of it, which I think is how I was able to get through it. Classic books are pretty difficult for me to get through because of the language and the way that they are written. It just takes a lot of brain power for me. So listening to it was definitely helpful. Oh, I don't know. I really did actually like Dracula a lot. It's on my shelf, like my favorites shelf. I think that I'm actually going to bring this up to a 4.25 because I still think about it to this day. I still love it. I still recommend it. This is an amazing spooky season book. This is not a 5-star because it's pretty slow at points. There's a lot of points where like not a lot is going on, but it's very suspenseful and I really liked it. Then we have Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. This is the second to Divine Rivals, if you didn't know. Oh my gosh, guys, I'm getting sick. I can even hear it in my voice. My voice is so scratchy. Anyway, Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I liked this more than I liked Divine Rivals. That is not reflected in my rating because they are both a 4 stars. Thinking back on it, I liked this because we got more of the war story, more of like the fantasy, a little less of the romance. But I actually really liked the romance in this because I felt like the romance in the first one was so quick. It was nice to have this one be almost like they were yearning for each other because they were not physically together. I liked that. I like slow burn. I like yearning, all of that. I think I will actually bring this one up, but to what? I think a 4.25 because I don't feel like it's worthy of a 4.5, even though it was really good. I really enjoyed this duology a lot, but it takes a lot for a book to reach a 4.5 or higher. For me, it needs to be like undeniably amazing. Then I read The Lovely Bones by Alice Sebold, and I rated this a 3 stars. Like I said before, child abuse and things like that are very hard for me to read about. So there was that aspect. And then there was like a grief aspect. And I kind of wish that there was a little bit more depth with that. But I have to remember at the same time that this was probably written for teenagers. So how deep are teenagers really going to think? I guess. I don't know. I think that I am going to stick at a 3 stars because it just didn't keep my interest and there wasn't any like great prose or anything. I feel like it could have done something even more than it did. Sorry guys, I had to run and grab some peppermint tea because my throat is just doing something. We are now moving on to April. The first book that I read in April was Insurgent by Veronica Roth. Again, like I said before, usually the second and third, fourth, whatever books in a series are better for me than the first one because I know and love the characters more. So I did give Insurgent a 4 stars. I think that I am going to stick with the 4-star rating for Insurgent because I did really like it actually. Even though it was, again, very YA, it was still very intriguing, very fun, exciting, suspenseful, all of the things that I love in a good dystopian book. And as I said before, I was very much attached to the characters at this point, so I am going to stick with a 4 stars for Insurgent, but I will say overall the Divergent series, I probably won't read it again. Next, I read the first in the Chronicles of Narnia, which was The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis. I adored this book. I've only made it to book 3 in the Chronicles of Narnia, and this is by far the best one so far. This is kind of like the prequel, I guess, of the actual Chronicles of Narnia plotline. This is how Narnia came to be. I gave it a 4.75 and I'm sticking with that. This is a children's book. It's funny how I don't usually gravitate to YA books, but I do really like to read children's books. Is there a psychologist here? Can she tell me why? And this was just one of those children's books that just did it for me. It was just so good, so magical and suspenseful. I almost wonder if I should actually bring this up to a 5 stars. You know what? No, I'm going to keep it at a 4.75 because although it was amazing, and I loved it so much, it didn't really give me that 5-star feeling, and I don't often think about it. When I do think about it, I remember how amazing it is, but it's not one of those that just pops up in my brain randomly and I'm like, oh my god, I love that book so much. And I feel like all of my 5-star books have that feeling. And I read another nonfiction. I think this is the last nonfiction that I read in the year, and that's Financial Feminist by Tori Dunlap. I rated this a 3.5, and thinking back, I think I'm going to up my rating. I think I'm actually going to put this at a 4 stars because this book and Tori Dunlap in general have taught me a lot about managing my money and how to make money, and she's exactly the kind of person that I would want to learn about managing my money from. This book is very good for if you want to learn how to manage your money and learn how to make money. It's very easy language, and Tori Dunlap gives it like a little fun and silly spin. So I think this was really good for if you are kind of trying to figure out how to save money, how to use stocks, how to get the most for your money. She kind of lays out step by step how you can basically get rich. I think that it was really good. I have read other books about money, and I do think that this one was the best because it gives you step-by-step ways to get to where you want to be. Then I read The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. This destroyed me. I gave this a 3.75, and you know what, guys? Although it destroyed me, I don't think that it deserves a 3.75. Only because it was boring. There was points where it picked up and I was very intrigued and it was suspenseful and I didn't know what was going to happen, and it was definitely one of the books that's going to pull on your heartstrings and absolutely devastate you at the end. I think that I'm actually going to bring this down to a 3.25. And that's because I just was bored for most of it. I didn't actually feel very connected to these characters. I'm going to leave it at that, a 3.25. I know for a lot of people this book is a 5-star book, and it was definitely good, but just a little slow for me. This is probably going to be the last time that I speak about Neil Gaiman on my channel. If you watched my October reading wrap up, you know why. Or if you just know all the stuff about Neil Gaiman, you know why. It actually still makes me very upset and sad because all of the books that I have read by him have been over 4.5 stars. So I genuinely wish that he was not the kind of person that he is, because I would love to read his backlist, but it's not something that I'm going to be doing. So anyways, I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I gave this a 5 stars. I love this book with my heart and soul. I'm just going to still leave this at a 5 stars because if I'm not thinking about the author, then this blew me away. And, you know, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to give him any more airtime. Then I read Happy Place by Emily Henry. Don't hate me. I rated this a 3.75. What I loved about this book was the nostalgic feeling and the deep feeling of friendship and the setting. Emily Henry is so good at putting you right there with the characters in the setting. I swear I could feel the ocean breeze. I could smell the beach when I was reading this, you know? I could see the village, you know, the shops and all of that. And I just love that feeling of being transported to where your characters are. So she did a very good job with that. And the friendship aspect I thought was amazing and beautiful. However, this came down below a 4 stars because I did not like this romance at all, you guys. I don't know if it's that I don't like Second Chance or if it was just these characters, but to me, our main character and the MMC were a little bit insufferable. They were annoying to me. I can't even really remember like why they were broken up in the first place. The whole entire book, this is what it was. The whole entire book felt like a damn third act breakup. And you know what I hate the most about romance books? You guessed it, the third act breakup. I hate it. And this whole entire book felt like that. But it did make it to a 3.75 because of how much I loved the friendship and the setting of this. I'm going to keep it at a 3.75. I'm tempted to reread this to see if I have different feelings about it. So maybe next year or the year after, I will pick it up again when I'm feeling in the mood, and we'll see if my rating changes then. Moving on to May. In May, I read Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. I gave it a 4.5 stars. This was my favorite thriller of the year, I will say, because of the plot twist. Every other thriller that I have read this year, I have guessed the plot twist, and that just kills it for me. And it actually makes me not even want to read the thriller genre. But this one, I did not see this plot twist coming, you guys. I couldn't see this plot twist from a mile away. I had like 40 theories in my mind, and none of them were true. Thinking about it more, I do actually think I'm going to lower this rating. I think I'm going to lower it to a 4.25. And I'm lowering it because thinking back on it, I was a little bit bored throughout. I think that the plot twist and how much it got me kind of overshadowed the fact that I actually did have kind of a hard time getting through it because it did feel a little bit boring and like nothing was going on for a while. We were in present time and past time, and I think whenever we went back to the past, I was like, ugh, because nothing was really happening in the past. It was still very good. Obviously, Above 4 Stars is an amazing book. Then I read Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden, and I rated it a 4 stars. I listened to this book. I think I probably read maybe 5% of it, and the rest of it I listened to, and I think that is what got me through this book. It didn't disappoint. I do feel like if I were to have read this, it would have been definitely harder for me to get through. But I do really still like this story. Do I like it enough to reread it? No, I wouldn't reread this. Again, it was one of those where it was just a little bit slow at times. And I think, I already know the story and I don't feel the need to go back to it. Yes, I would like to watch the movie again at some point. I think, No, I think I am going to leave this at a 4 stars because it doesn't feel right for me to lower it. And it doesn't feel right for me to give it a higher rating either. I think a 4 stars really fits this book. Then I read The Wishing Game by Meg Schaefer. I gave it a 3.75. This was cute. It was fun. It was a little bit suspenseful and like, what's going to happen? But I don't think that it was anything spectacular. And I think that a 3.75 is a little bit generous. I actually do think I'm going to bring this down to a 3.25. It was cute and fun, but it wasn't anything spectacular. I was really hoping that it would be more magical or more something. It just fell a little bit flat for me. Next, I read Graceling by Kristen Cashore. I was very, very, very excited to start this series. I gave this a 3.75 and I'm going to stick with that. Yeah, no. I'm going to bring this down to a 3.5. Although it was good, it just wasn't as good as I was expecting. So this might have been kind of like an expectation type of thing. So it might be my own fault that I didn't like it as much as I expected to. I wasn't overly attached to the characters or anything. I'm actually trying to figure out if I'm going to continue this series. I actually liked the second book more than this, and it didn't even have the same characters. The second one is a prequel. Yeah, I'm going to leave it at a 3.5 for now. Then I read The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. At the time, I rated this a 5 stars. Looking back, I actually don't really know why, but I think I'm going to bring this down to a 4.75 stars. And maybe it's because I don't think about this book often. It was a really great addition to the story, and I literally cannot wait for Hamish's story. I forget when that book is coming out, but I'm so excited. But anyway, can't even really entirely remember the plot or even why, but I just kind of feel like it needs to go down 0.25 points for some reason, probably because it's not one that I automatically think of when I think of my 5-star books. Moving on to June, I read Allegiant by Veronica Roth, which is the third and final book in the Divergent series, and I gave it a 4.25. I know that this is usually people's least favorite Divergent book, but it was my favorite. It was very different than the first two, which is why I think probably people didn't like it as much. But I do actually think that that is why I liked it. It's funny how that works out because it was like the same situation for Ruthless Vows where like it wasn't really what people were expecting. And so they didn't like it. But for me, it's like the opposite. It wasn't what I was expecting. So I actually liked it more. I don't know. I am going to bring this down to a 4 stars because I just don't know that a 4.25, I don't think it deserves that title, even though I really liked it. I think I rated it a 4.25 because I was like, wow, I like this a lot more than I like Divergent and Insurgent. So yeah, I think that was the reason for my rating. But thinking back on it, it wasn't like spectacular. I don't think that it was worth a 4.25. Then we have People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry. If you watch my videos, you know that this is my favorite Emily Henry book. I know, that's controversial. I know. This is usually people's least favorite Emily Henry book. I think it had to do with the Friends to Lovers, guys. Did I already say I rated this a 4.75? I think I just absolutely love friends to lovers, guys. I think really that's what it is. And Alex, I don't know. I know that he was kind of grumpy and like a little bit annoying at points, but I honestly felt like Poppy was a little bit more annoying. Poppy was a character that was hard for me to like. So I think that brought it down a little bit, and the fact that it had a third act breakup. I know that like all romance books have a third act breakup. If you guys know any books that are romance books that do not have a third act breakup, please leave them down below. I want to read them. The third act breakup in romance books is what kills the romance book every single time for me, because every single time it doesn't feel like there's an actual good reasoning. It just feels like, oh, we're putting this here so that we can make the book longer and make a little conflict. I loved this because it was friends to lovers. I loved the setting of it. I loved Alex. I want him to be my boyfriend. The scene where Poppy is sick and he comes to help her ended me. It solidified this book for me. Oh my gosh. The way I would kill for someone to take care of me when I'm sick. This is going to stay right at a 4.75. Maybe I'll rate it differently if I read it again. Next, I read 7 Days in June by Tia Williams, and I rated it a 3.75. I think that I am actually going to stick with a 3.75 for this book. I really liked the depth of this book. I really liked the relationship between the mom and the daughter a lot. I really liked the relationship between the MMC and his students. I actually wish we got a little bit more of that, to be honest. I did really like the romance. It's just one of those books that I can't really pinpoint why it wasn't like a 4 and above. Then I read The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. Guys, I rated this a 3.75, and that's generous. I can already tell you that's generous. I know that this is a lot of people's favorite thriller. I think most people enjoy this book. I guessed the plot twist of this within the first quarter of the book, and the whole time I just saw right through what was happening. So yeah, it killed it for me, and I think that if I had not known why people love this so much and knew all the hype around the plot twist, then I don't think I would have guessed the plot twist actually, and I would have liked it more. But because people were saying like, oh my gosh, like the plot twist will get you, I just came up with the most crazy plot twist that I could think of in my mind, and it was accurate. Even though I don't think that it was a bad thriller, and I do understand why people like it, guessing the plot twist, like I said before, just really kills it for me. So I think I'm going to bring this down to a 3.25. Sorry, but it just is what it is. I don't know. It's not the book's fault. Then I read Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom Riggs. This is a children's book. I rated it a 3.5 stars. It was a little bit difficult to get through. There was some plot holes, and I just didn't really feel like continuing the series at all, which is a red flag. I wasn't really connected to the characters enough to see what happens next, and I actually gave the second one to a little free library. So I'm going to bring this down to a 3.25 stars because it wasn't bad. It was still cute and good, and I think that if I was a kid, I would have died for this book. We're moving on to July, guys, and the first book that I finished in July was City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I gave this a 5 stars. This is also in my video of underrated or underhyped books. I love the characters in this book. I loved the setting. It was one of those where the setting was just like, it really pulled me in, and I just felt like I was in New York City with these characters. I remember just like slamming this book shut and being like, oh my God, 5 stars. But thinking back on it, I'm like, really? Like, would I really rate this 5 stars? This was definitely a 4.5 or above. I think I need to reread this to know for sure if it's a 5 stars. And I'm going to reread it, and when I do, I will have like my final answer, but I don't know when I'm going to reread it. I feel like if a book is a 5 stars for you, you should be 100% in love with it, and you shouldn't question if it's a 5 stars. If you're questioning if it's a 5 stars, then I don't believe it's a 5 stars. And I'm questioning right now. So I do think I'm just going to lower this down to a 4.5 for now. I absolutely adored this book, you guys. It was so good. I just loved the characters so much, and the story was good, but I'm not sure that it really meets the marker for a 5 stars. But yeah, I did really like this. Anyway, I read Yellow Face by R.F. Kuang, and I gave it a 4 stars. This was one that was very hard to rate because I absolutely hated the main character with a passion, but I think there was a lot of good points in this book. I don't know if I feel like this book meets the 4-star criteria. It was good, but I don't know if it was that good for me. So I think I'm going to bring this down to a 3.5. I really liked it, but thinking back on it, I just don't think it meets that 4-star criteria. Then we have Caraval by Stephanie Garber. I rated this a 3.75. This is not a 3.75. I'm lowering this to a 3 stars. We all know my feelings about Caraval, and if you don't, watch this video. I didn't like the writing style. I thought it was trying too hard. The plot holes were endless. It was very YA. I hyped it up in my brain, which also doesn't help because the concept was very intriguing to me, and I feel like Stephanie Garber could have done so much more with this storyline. It wasn't awful. It wasn't the worst book I've ever read, but it also was not the best. Moving right along to Baby Teeth by Zoya Stage. I gave this a 4.25. This is a thriller. I think I'm going to bring this down, guys. I think I'm going to bring this down to a 3.75. I know that's kind of a big jump. I was really intrigued by this book. I was on the edge of my seat and I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. What's going to happen? But I actually hated the ending of this book so much that it actually is going to bring it down that far. I was really hoping that something crazy was going to happen in the end of this book, and instead I'm not going to give it away because it is a good book and I do think that you should read it because it was very suspenseful for sure. Yeah, I'm not going to say why I hated the ending because it will give the whole book away, but if you do go into this book, just know that the ending is not very satisfying, but I do still recommend it because it is very intense. I really liked the aspect of motherhood, like the portrayal of motherhood in this book. It's like at some points I really related to the mother, and at other points I was like, whoa, no, I don't relate to this. It was very interesting. The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the second in the Chronicles of Narnia series by C.S. Lewis, I gave it a 3.75. I think 3.75 is generous because I don't even really remember entirely what happens. I think I'm just going to bring it down to a 3.5. It was cute and fun and magical, a little bit suspenseful at times. I liked it, but I don't think it was a 3.75. Then I read The Circle by Dave Eggers and I gave it a 3.5. This was hard to rate also because I did find it very interesting and like dystopian, and I found it to be like not far off as far as like the world that we live in now, which was like kind of creepy and weird and like hard to think about. So those are the things that I liked about it, but this was long and it did not need to be this long. I don't remember how long it was. I already got rid of the book, but I want to say like it was at least 450 or 500 pages and it just dragged. It didn't need to be that long at all. It could have been cut down by at least 100 pages. This is the start of a series and I had no desire to pick up the second one, which is interesting because as I was reading it, I was very intrigued and I wanted to know what was going to happen. But by the end of it, I was like, no, I don't really want to read the second one. So I think that 3.5 might be, well, because I did like it. I'm going to bring it down to a 3.25 because I did like it. It was just a little bit too long and it was a little bit repetitive. Last book of July was Wayward by Amelia Hart. I love this book with all my heart. Again, this is in my underhyped books video. I gave this a 4.5 stars and I think that that is the perfect rating for it. I really loved every single aspect of this book. I loved following 3 women within the same family line at different times. I was really intrigued by their gift with nature. I loved like the feminine feeling of this book. And at times it was just a teensy bit slow, but that didn't really take away from how much I loved this book. So we're going to leave it at a 4.5 stars. We're moving on to August, and the first one that I read was The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis, which is the third book in the Chronicles of Narnia series. And I gave this a 3 stars. Oh, and I left a note too on it. What does it say? The note says, felt like a novella, was not as magical as the first 2. Interested to see if these characters come up again in the rest of the series. This was not as magical, not as suspenseful. It was just kind of like a boy and a girl and their horses journeying to Narnia, but like not really much happened on the journey. It was a lot of just walking, and then they got there. I mean, there was like a little bit of a mishap in the middle, but it was very mild, and I just wished that it was more suspenseful. I wish that more happened. I wish it was more magical. I don't really like books where there's a long journey where nothing is happening on the journey. I love books where there is a journey and a bunch of crazy stuff is happening, but I'm going to stick with a 3 stars for this one. Next, we have Legendary by Stephanie Garber, and I gave this a 3.75. Let's see my note on it. Liked this more than Caraval. Felt more attached to the characters. Still had the issue of describing everything in metaphors. Interested to see whose story will be following in finale and what will happen. So I guess I was interested in the story at this point, but I still don't know if it was. I'm going to bring it down to a 3.5 because I know obviously that I liked it more than Caraval, but I just know that throughout this I still had the same issues as Caraval, and I already explained all of my issues with Caraval, so I won't go into it. Next, we have Fire by Kristen Kishore, which is the second book in the Graceling series, but it's a prequel book. So this is about characters way before our Graceling characters. This was a good backstory for one specific character, but that specific character that's also in Graceling was not the main character in Fire. I really, really liked our main character in Fire, and I really liked our MMC. I felt a lot more connected with our characters in this one, and I actually feel so sad that we don't get to see the rest of Fire's story. I gave this a 4 stars. Let me see what I wrote. Not a whole lot happened in this book, but still really enjoyed it. I felt more attached to the characters in this book than in Graceling. Very interested to see how these 2 books will connect in the next book, and hoping that these characters show up again in the rest of the series, because I really, really liked the characters in this one more than Graceling. But I am right in my note about not a lot happening. It was one of those situations where there wasn't a lot happening, but I was very attached to the characters, so the characters brought my rating up. I think I am going to stick with a 4 stars. Next, I read Beach Read by Emily Henry, and I gave this a 3.75. I did really like this book, but I had big expectations going into it because of all the hype, and it just did not meet that hype. Not to mention, it's literally called Beach Read, and they go to the beach lake like twice in the book for like 1 paragraph. Accurate. This book literally has nothing to do with the beach. Not gonna lie to you. If you haven't read it before, her house is just on a lake, and she goes down to the beach maybe once or twice in the book, and it's literally for like a couple sentences that they're on the beach. My expectations were through the freaking roof with this one because everyone loves it so much. So yeah, the expectation definitely did not meet what the book actually was for me as far as ratings go. I think I liked the couple. It just was not spectacular. Like, it was just an average romance to me. Because I literally don't remember this, I feel like it shouldn't be at a 3.75. I'm going to bring this down to a 3.5 because I know that I liked it enough for it to be a 3.5. So that's that. Then I read Demon Slayer, which is a manga. It was my first manga ever. And after reading it, I don't know if manga is for me, which is fine. I was hoping that it would be because there's lots of really cool manga out there, but it was just a little bit corny for me. I rated this a 3.25. I did like the story, and actually I think that a 3.25 is actually lower than I would give it now. I think I'm actually going to bring this up to a 3.5, I guess. I was in between a 3.5 and a 3.75. Thank you. Don't touch. Cheese. I don't know if I'm going to be able to continue this video right now. I might have to pick this up tomorrow because my toddler just woke up early. Oh, you hear Monsters Inc. down there? Did you want to go watch it? You know what, guys? I have quite a few books left to go here, and I can't just leave my toddler downstairs unsupervised. So I actually am going to have to come back to this tomorrow. So I will see you in the next clip when it's tomorrow or later tonight. Hi guys, I'm back. It is later in the day. I just put my kids to bed, looking a little bit more disheveled than I was earlier. So sorry about that, but mom life, you know? Let's see if we can make it through more of these. The first book I read in September was Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. I gave this one a 4 stars. I did do like half audiobook, half physical reading with this one. I didn't know this before I listened to the audiobook, but people have been saying that if you listen to the audiobook, it makes the experience not as good, which is interesting because I know for a lot of people, this book is a 5-star book. And I'm wondering if the audiobook had to do with my 4-star rating. I did really like the story. I liked the romance. I bought the second book, and I don't normally buy books in a series unless I think that I will reread them in the future. So that is a good sign. It's definitely not lower than a 4 stars. I think I am going to leave this one at a 4 stars. I really liked it, but it did kind of feel like something was missing a little bit, and I can't really put my finger on it. Then I read Bunny by Mona Awad. I love this book. I gave this book a 4.25 star. This book is an absolute ride and a half. This is definitely not for the faint of heart and not for people who want to know what's going on in their books. But I actually absolutely loved that about it. I think I actually am going to change this to a 4.5 because I do actually think about this book all the time. It is just such an interesting and strange as hell book. I don't have a physical copy of it, but it has been on my mind lately, and I want to pick it up, and I want to reread it, and I want to annotate it, and I just want to see what my opinion is on it the second time around. Next, I read Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, and I gave it a 3.75. This is definitely one that I am going to raise the rating of. I gave this a 3.75 initially because all of the science talk was just so boring and like made no sense to me. I am not a science girl. I know that it is a science fiction book, so I should have probably known that when I went into this, but I did end up skipping a lot of this book because of the science talk. I just skipped right over every time he was talking about something sciencey. The characters in this book, I think, outweigh me having to skip over the science talk. I'm trying to decide if I want to make this a 4-star or a 4.25 star. I think I am just going to make this a 4-star because the characters were amazing. I loved the relationship in this book. Not romantic relationship, but if you know, you know. It was just really sweet and wholesome, to be honest, which is something that I didn't expect going into this book. Then, okay, this is a big one. Then I read Fable by R.F. Kuang, and I rated it a 3.25, guys. After thinking on this for a very long time, and after seeing other people's reviews, I am going to rate this higher. I struggled a lot with the academia part of this book, and that is the main reason why it got a lower rating. A 3.25 isn't bad, but it's on the lower end. This book has a lot of really important themes, and R.F. Kuang did it very beautifully. And I think that I was disappointed that there wasn't more like of a magical element and more of like the secret society. But as I thought on it, I don't think that the main focus of this book was supposed to be the magic and the secret society. I think that was just kind of like a cool side element. Really, the focus of this, I believe, was discussing colonialism through fiction. And for that, she did an absolutely amazing job. Yeah, I definitely think the like academic part of this weighed me down. A lot of people say that it reads like a textbook, and I don't think that's a lie. It's dense and it's hard to get through, but I think that R.F. Kuang really achieved something here. And I think that it deserves a better rating than what I gave it for what it was. I am going to give this a 3.75. I just don't think that I can justify giving it a 4 stars because it just wasn't my cup of tea. It was very impactful and I appreciate that a lot. My rating has nothing to do with the story because I did actually really like the story. It just has to do with how dense it was and how hard it was for me to trudge through. Okay, we're moving right along to October. We're getting closer to the end of the year, guys. First book that I finished in October was Legend Born. You guys already know. This is a 5-star. It's gonna stay at a 5-star. I love it with all my heart and soul. I definitely had 5-star feelings. I think about this book frequently, and I could not wait a single second to get my hands on the second book. So that is a clear sign that this is just going to stay right where it's supposed to be at a 5 stars. Then I read The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake, which I gave a 4.25 stars. I think that I rated this too highly, and I think I am just going to bring it down to a 4 stars. Just knock it down that 0.25 points because it was really good. I was very interested and I'm excited to pick up the second book, but I will say that I'm questioning whether or not I want to buy the second book. And that is a clear sign that it shouldn't be above a 4 stars, I don't think. I will probably pick up the second book at the library, and if I really enjoy the second book, then I think I will probably purchase it, and then I'll purchase the third one as well so that I can do a reread of them. Then I read Starling House by Alex E. Haro. I gave this a 3.25. This is a low rating compared to what other people have rated it. This book was in my overhyped books video. I don't think that it's like super hyped up, but I think that people like it more than I liked it. I wish we got more of the sentient house. The love was very insta-lovey. There was just like no lead up, and then all of a sudden they were just like in love. I think the only thing that kept me hanging on to this story was the ending. I really liked the ending. It was very interesting. It was very unique, and I really liked that. So honestly, no, you know what? I am going to leave it at a 3.25 because this kind of felt like I was trudging through it also. Like it was just one of those books where I was reading and I was like, okay, I actually can't wait for this to be done so that I can pick up a different book. And then I read The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman again. I rated this a 4 stars. I think it's going to stay at a 4 stars. That's all I'm going to say. And then I read And Then There Were None by Agatha Christie, and I put this out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed how quick this was and how twisty and turny, and how I had literally no idea who the murderer was going to be. See, right now I'm questioning if it should be at a 5 stars. So I think I am going to bring And Then There Were None down to a 4.5 because I really enjoyed this, and I I did not guess the plot twist. I didn't guess who the murderer was. I was on my toes the whole time. There wasn't any part of this that I was bored at all. I think the beginning was a little bit hard to get into because there were so many characters all at once and I didn't know who was who, but that didn't really sway my rating at all. Then I read A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson, and I rated it a 4.25 stars. I absolutely adored the characters in this. Yes, it was kind of a difficult read. There was a lot of abuse in this book. I just really enjoyed the characters in this, and in some ways I felt deeply connected to Constanta, so I almost wonder if I want to bring this up to a 4.5 stars. I think I am going to leave it at a 4.25 stars because it is a little bit slow. It reads kind of like a literary fiction where you're just following the characters through their life. Then we have Finale by Stephanie Garber. I gave this a 3.5, and that's generous. I already know. That's generous. I think I'm going to bring this to a 3 stars, guys, because it wasn't the worst book ever, guys, but I think especially in this one particularly, the plot holes, like Jax literally put her under a spell and she couldn't not be with him, but then suddenly like they just weren't together. You know, I don't know. If you've read it, you know. If I had read this when I was 15, 16, 17, I think I would have absolutely loved this so much because I didn't really have critical thinking back then. And the last book I read in October was The Woman in the Window by AJ Finn, and I gave this a 4.25. And I do think that I'm going to stick with that, actually, and I'm sticking with that because of like the grief aspect and the fact that it was a thriller, but it also had depth. I appreciated that so much. Because, you know, thrillers, they're just thrillers. You don't really get attached to the characters and you're just kind of there for the thrills. But this one, our main character had a backstory, and her backstory was very tragic and traumatic. And it was just very interesting to slowly uncover what happened to her and what happened to her family. Then we are on to November, guys. This is going to be the last month that I do, because I am only on my second book right now in December. The first book I read in November was Blood Marked by Tracy Dion. 5 stars, no notes. Can't wait for Oathbound. I tried to read Wicked by Gregory Maguire and I DNF'd it. I'm really sad about this one, and I literally was just downstairs telling my brother that I want to try and pick it up again, but I really did feel like I was trudging through it, but that could have been because I was in a massive reading slump when I tried to read it, and it's just a little bit more dense than like a light and fluffy book. And I read Dial A for Aunties, which got me out of my slump, and I rated this a 4.25. And actually, even though it was only like a few weeks ago, I think I am actually going to drop this down to a 4-star because it was really cute. I really enjoyed it a lot. It was hilarious, but I do think that the fact that it kind of pulled me out of my slump made me feel like it was like this amazing book, which it was really good. It was hilarious, and I'm going to pick up the rest of the series, but I don't know that it's worthy of a 4.25. Then I read Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, and I rated it 4.75. This is the first time I have picked up Harry Potter in my adult life, and I have a Harry Potter tattoo, you guys, on my arm. This series meant everything to me when I was a kid. I think Harry Potter is actually what put me into like a 15-year book slump. Not even kidding you guys. I read Harry Potter and I picked up like a few books here and there as a teenager, but nothing could compare at all. And I just kind of gave up on reading, which is so sad, but yeah. And I never rated the books back when I read them when I was a kid. Obviously, there wasn't like Book Talk or BookTube when I was a kid, and we didn't rate books back then. We just said if we liked them or not. I've seen the movies more than I have seen any other movies. I've watched these movies, and I can't even count how many times I've watched these movies. So like I already know the story and it's deeply ingrained within me, and so I'm kind of trying to like step out of that and think about about how I would rate this if I was just reading this for the first time. No, I do think this is going to stay at a 4.75. I love them. They're my babies. They got me into reading and they got me out of reading for a few years. So that is it, guys. I would love to know if any of you guys have read any of these books or if they're on your TBR. What are your thoughts on them? Do we have similar thoughts or not similar thoughts? I would love to hear either way. If you like videos like this, I would love to have you stick around and subscribe to my channel. Go watch more of my videos, please, to help me out. I'm going to link my favorite books of all time down below, and also my socials and my Goodreads and Fable. Everything is linked down below. Let me know your thoughts. I love to chat with you guys, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!